Sabrina Carpenter's blonde ambition, dull domination, Lucille Ball realness has officially taken over the world. After watching her iconic Brit Awards performance with that incredible onstage costume change, I found myself thinking a few thoughts. First of all, her performance skills have really come on leaps and bounds since she first debuted Espresso at Coachella. She seems so confident, so capable, and so in control of herself while she's performing on stage. That bedcam vocal and choreography combo is no joke, and she killed it. I couldn't help but remember myself in the front row at the Eras tour, not even a year ago, looking at my watch and waiting for her set to end. This was, of course, before Short and Sweet and Espresso came out. And yes, you ologists may remember, I was a Sabrina not enjoyer. Not for any particular reason, though every fan base accuses me of having some sort of hidden agenda when I don't enjoy something. Just because her music never stuck with me. I know that Emails I Can't Send has a lot of defenders, but I'm staying true to my original assessment. Even if you like it, I'm sorry, it was boring. It was algorithm pop. It was nowhere near the caliber of Short and Sweet. And there was nothing or unique or special about it. And that's why it didn't yield hits like Taste, Please, 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 or Espresso. So what was the Sabrina hype about prior to this? Her star power. She's always been an engaging performer, and she is obviously conventionally stunning. The music just wasn't matching the potential. So if you'd asked me back then, a year ago, what Sabrina would have to do to become a main pop girl, I would have laughed and said, make some good music and good luck with that based on what I've seen. But look what happened. I love to be proven wrong. I love to support a girly. She went into the studio with a vision and a direction, and she produced one of the biggest and best albums of 2024. So yes, that Brit's performance prompted a lot for me. I also thought while watching it that rather suddenly Sabrina has developed this kind of next level je ne sais quoi, or what I like to call, or many like to call, main pop girl energy. It's probably too soon to officially anoint her as like a staple main pop girl, but all the signs, the promising signs are there. Her astronomical success isn't just a feeling, it's backed by hard data. 2024, as we all know, was a very competitive year for pop and pop music, and Sabrina was a heavyweight champ. According to Illuminate's 2024 year-end report, a leading industry analysis of music consumption trends, Espresso was the second most streamed song globally, racking up a staggering 2.5 billion streams, with Please, Please, Please also breaking into the top 10. Her album Short and Sweet was the fifth biggest album of the year in the US and third worldwide, selling nearly 2.5 million album equivalent units and thriving on direct-to-consumer sales, so album and vinyl, which is a hallmark of pop superstars with very devoted fan bases. She was the third most streamed pop artist after Taylor and Billie. Not bad for a girl with basically one album that people actually care about. People are always gagged when you remind them that Short and Sweet is Sabrina's sixth studio album. I think for a lot of people, she literally only started to exist with Espresso. And this is the power of a smash hit. Good creative direction can really make people forget about your flops of the past. They can recast you as either a star who has patiently been biding their time for a moment in the spotlight, as a criminally underrated and overlooked up-and-comer, or even better, as a brand new artist who has suddenly been given the world stage and a clean canvas to paint on. What Sabrina really needed was a reset button, and she got it, and she hit it hard. There are so many factors that converged to make this happen, but we must first understand that this was no fluke. This was a flawlessly executed album campaign backed by strategy, label investment, great music, and perfect timing. Let's unpack all of this and how it happened on the second episode of How to Revive Your Career, the Sabrina Carpenter story. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Zach. I'm the Swiftologist. I make thoughtful weekly videos about pop culture. This is the second installment in my series, How to Revive Your Career. The first episode I did was about Ariana Grande. I also have another series called How to Murder Your Career that has 2 episodes, Katy Perry and Demi Lovato. So you should go check that out. And tickets to my podcast that is going live on tour in the United States this summer are on sale now. DC and LA are sold out. So you better get your ass up and get those tickets to Evolution of Snake live in a city near you soon. And before we get any further into the video, I want to take a moment and thank today's sponsor, RoboForm. Passwords should make life easier, not harder. But for most of us, they're a constant headache. Between forgotten logins, endless reset emails, and security questions you barely remember how to answer, it's a mess. If you've ever been trapped in the reset password spiral or asked, wait, did I use a capital letter in this one? I feel your pain. Passwords are a tool of oppression created by anti-ADHD-ologists. That's why I started using RoboForm, the sponsor of today's video, and I don't know how I ever lived without it. RoboForm generates secure passwords, remembers them across all your devices, and autofills your login, so you never have to stress about getting locked out. And yes, it's secure. RoboForm uses end-to-end encryption, meaning they can't even see your passwords. So Diva, this is your passwords from the vault. Before RoboForm, my password system was non-existent. I was relying on this famously unreliable brain of mine to keep track of critical logins, which meant resetting passwords constantly. But now I only have to remember one master password, and RoboForm takes care of the rest. So if you want password security without the stress, try RoboForm. Hit the link in my description subscription for an exclusive discount and let RoboForm handle your logins while you focus on more important things, like finally getting through your email inbox or figuring out whether the alchemy is about Maddie Healy or Travis Kelce. Thank you again so much to RoboForm for sponsoring this video. I want to start by talking about the effect, the impact, the power of a smash hit. Short and Sweet is a jaw-droppingly well-executed album cycle in the streaming age where pre-release singles are virtually non-existent or completely uneventful, and albums arrive with a lot of buzz and fanfare for about a week or two before fading into the background. It takes a lot to overcome the relentlessness of the content churn. In fact, what it really takes is a smash hit. Not easy to get in this day and age. And it's especially not easy to get for someone who has, one, never had one before, and two, been flying under the radar, or to be frank, flopping in public at their attempts to be a main pop girl for years. The beauty of having one, though, is that a smash hit is the great equalizer in pop music. It doesn't matter how many flop or middling singles you've had, or even how little people cared for or liked you before. If the song is big enough, it can completely change your fate. Espresso was the reset button for Sabrina Carpenter. She accomplished a rebrand, the likes of which we haven't seen before at this scale and this pace, on the back of a bona fide pop sensation. This is the kind of hit that would make an inferior artist a one-hit wonder, so all-encompassing, global, and massive that it dwarfs the rest of your accomplishments, and you spend the rest of your career trying to replicate its magic before giving up and accepting your fate as a beloved indie artist with one insanely successful song that gets people on their feet at a festival. Looking at you with love, Carly Rae Jepsen. People really overlook smashes like Espresso from a craft perspective. Many pop fans wave off these sensations, arguing there are better deep cuts to be found from an album, or that the song is simply too basic to be considered an artistic achievement. But manufacturing a pop hit is one of the hardest tasks to accomplish in the music industry. It's very easy to make a pop song. It's very difficult to make a pop hit. It requires the convergence of many factors: musical science, psychological appeal, cultural timing, and market precision. The smash hit is a shared experience across millions or even perhaps billions of people. It's an economic and artistic powerhouse that can alter the lives of so many people other than the singer involved. The producers, the songwriters, the audio engineers can reach stratospheric new heights, enter rooms they would have never dreamed of entering on the back of just one hit. There are exceptions to every rule, but pop hits generally share structural commonalities with each other that worm their way into the human psyche. They need to be instantly memorable. What's the turn of phrase or the addictive hook that will get stuck in someone's mind? Studies have shown that listeners can decide very quickly, within the first 10 seconds of listening to a song, if they're going to like it or not. The song has to be catchy, but not too annoying. And that is a finer line to walk than you might think. It's what makes Espresso an endearing smash hit, and Happy by Pharrell Williams a song that you groan and run away from when it comes on at the Chuck E. Cheese. Beyond its earworm chorus, Espresso has a very distinctive non-vocal groove. As a producer that I was watching a video breaking it down described it, that makes it irresistible. And you hear that within the first 5 seconds of the song before you even hear the hook. Dopamine spikes generally control the fate of a pop song. Is your brain responding to this song the way it does to food, sex, or drugs? Is there a climax? Studies have shown that dopamine release increases when a song reaches its emotional peak, and there are many different ways to build that sonically, but the Espresso chorus is that moment. We also want our pop songs to be easily understood, yet somehow surprising. It's a high-low combination that is really difficult to strike. Espresso is deliberately structured to trigger recognition, enjoyment, and replayability in that sense. It is your bog standard pop song, but the lyrics and the vocal delivery are that surprising element. That me Espresso is weird and doesn't make any sense. But in pop, things that don't make any sense usually do. So the science of a smash hit is about pulling the right psychological triggers all at the same time, leveraging our love of patterns and repetition, engineering, whether through songwriting or audio production, and emotional payoff, and guaranteeing repeat exposure. If you're not constantly being assaulted by a pop song, it's not likely to become a hit. And that's where label investment, playlisting on streaming, and radio have a lot to answer for. I will expand on those later when I discuss this album's release. Shall we examine, as a thought experiment, some smash hits that changed the fate of other artists who were in a similar spot to Sabrina Carpenter's? Either middling or underrated artists who hadn't got their shot in the spotlight yet. I'm not going to include Chappell Roan here because I really think that it was Chappell's story that sent her to the next level, not just one song, because multiple songs of hers popped off at the same time. You could argue that Good Luck Babe led the charge, but Pink Pony Club, Hot to Go, all of these songs had their moment too. Lizzo's Truth Hurts in 2019. This song was originally released in 2017 and it flopped. No charting, no traction. Lizzo had 2 studio albums, with the first being released 6 years before Truth Hurts went viral, before she actually popped off. And what helped her get there? TikTok. She was pretty much reborn overnight, tapped as a breakout star as Truth Hurts soared to #1 and became the longest #1 hit by a female rapper, which eventually won Record of the Year at the Grammys. So what actually changed about Lizzo between her flopping and her succeeding to facilitate our perception of her as an A-list pop star? Well, Nothing. She kept making the same kind of music that she always had. The smash hit just convinced us that she hadn't existed before it. And then we have Dua Lipa with New Rules in 2017. Dua had a lot of buzz as a promising up-and-comer, a new Brit pop act, if you will. Her singles were semi-well received, but nothing really penetrated the mainstream until New Rules, which really changed that. It arrived with an eventful, very of its time music video, hyper-stylized with viral choreography, and it definitely launched the cool it girl persona that she still leverages in her brand today. All of a sudden, with a hit on her side, the label is investing a lot more after New Rules becomes viral because, again, the power of a smash hit is that it forces people to pay attention to you. More recently, there's also Doja Cat with Say So in 2020, another receiver of the TikTok viral effect. She was kind of known as an internet personality / singer before the song really took, and a dance challenge made the song go completely global. She smartly leaned into it, doing the choreography on stage and in her music video, which precipitated her iconic album Planet Her, which was in fact her third album, although the public received it as her first album and received her as a new artist. Let's backtrack and do some context setting to lay up how Sabrina did global doll domination with short and sweet. Sabrina signed a 5-album deal with Hollywood Records while she starred on Disney Channel's Girl Meets World. Hollywood Records is Disney's record label, and they are notoriously not good at promoting artists who are not their marquee artists, and Sabrina definitely wasn't that important to them at the time. They also don't really let artists explore their sonic identity without, it's very much we give you the songs and you sing them. Sabrina was really young when she signed with Hollywood Records, only 14, and she put out a number of albums with them and literally failed to achieve a single hit. Sue Me popped off though. Sabrina signed with Island Records after her deal was done, who also signed Chappell Roan, fun fact, in 2021. And this was pretty much right after Sabrina endured a pop girl rite of passage, the scandal. She was embroiled in controversy after Olivia Rodrigo wrote songs on her smash debut record Sour about a love triangle with her and Joshua Bassett. I don't care to litigate the particulars of this, but it affected Sabrina greatly in an emotional sense, and she felt very attacked and otherwomaned, in her view, unnecessarily. However, it's kind of perverse because this is one of the best things that ever happened to her career because it gave people a reason to care about her and an awareness of her that she wasn't able to get through her music at the time. However, the songwriting chops were just not there yet. Her songwriting ability is actually a subject of fascination to me because, truthfully, I don't think she's an excellent writer per se. She's not a savant or a wordsmith in the way that Olivia Rodrigo is. She's not a true singer-songwriter, and it's very telling that when she pivoted away from branding herself as such, her big success and her moment came. I'm always saying this, you don't have to do diaristic confessional music to be a big pop star. Unfortunately, in 2021, she was all in on the singer-songwriter thing and took her first release with Interscope as an opportunity to respond to Olivia Rodrigo, which would have been a fantastic marketing move if the song was any good. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. The song is called Skin, and it's dreary and dull. Pop music has never been exclusively about songwriting, and the idea that every successful female pop star needs to be a confessional, deeply autobiographical writer is a relatively recent phenomenon, largely attributed to Taylor Swift's dominance over the past decade. Taylor made it so that pop music, particularly female pop music, became synonymous with personal storytelling, turning lyrics into a primary selling point rather than just one piece of the entire puzzle of a song or project. And while this works for a select few artists, Olivia Rodrigo being the best recent example, as her entire brand is built on emotional transparency and diaristic songwriting too, it's simply not the only way to be a successful pop star. In fact, some of the biggest pop icons of all time weren't known for their songwriting at all. Madonna, Britney Spears, Rihanna. These are not women who built their careers on spilling their souls into their lyrics. Instead, they mastered performance, aesthetic, and curatorial genius, knowing how to pick the right songs and work with the right collaborators and sell a fully formed vision of pop stardom. This is where Sabrina Carpenter ultimately found her lane. She does not need to be Olivia Rodrigo, just as Britney Spears did not need to be Alanis Morissette. The moment that she stopped trying to force herself into the singer-songwriter mold and leaned into character, humor, and performance, she finally broke through. The strength of a songwriter is, of course, subjective, but if we're playing the numbers game, her weepy confessional ballads simply weren't hitting. The rollout of her first record outside of Hollywood Records, Emails I Can't Send, was, in retrospect, a dud. Not in the sense that it completely flopped, but in the sense that it failed to position Sabrina Carpenter as a must-watch pop star. It was an awkward middle ground. It was too confessional to be fun, but not strong enough lyrically to stand alongside the Taylor Swifts and the Olivia Rodrigos of the world. Because remember, when you brand yourself as a singer-songwriter, those are the people you're up against. The marketing leaned heavily into that singer-songwriter intimacy, but the songs just weren't impactful enough to make that branding feel convincing or mature. And while it performed better than her previous records, it didn't yield true pop hits. Nonsense only became a viral moment months after the album dropped, and even then, it was more about the improvised outros than about the song itself. But Emails I Can't Send was an important stepping stone. It let her dip her toes into authenticity while realizing that raw storytelling alone would not get her to the next level. And the proof of her writing songwriting's limitations is right there in the songs. Sabrina's lyrics, especially from this period of time, often gesture towards depth but rarely land a gut punch. Take Tornado Warnings, a song that wants to be a compelling, messy inner monologue but gets lost in overly cutesy phrasings. Or Because I Liked a Boy, which attempts to frame her post-Olivia Rodrigo backlash as tragic but reads more like an obligatory PR response than a truly revealing confession. Compare this to Olivia's Vampire, for example, which paints a clear, evocative picture of betrayal and naivete with less detail. Sabrina, by contrast, she tells you a lot, but she's not showing you how she feels. The real revelation was that her best moments weren't the diary entry songs. They were the playful and charismatic ones. Feather, which didn't come out in the original version, and Nonsense. Nonsense was literally the last single to be released in this album campaign. If you can believe it, there were four singles before Nonsense that failed to connect or register as hits with the public. And surprise, surprise, all of them were the confessional kind of ballad things that nobody was checking for. Julia Michaels, absent mostly from Short and Sweet, has much to answer for here. Her mode of songwriting is very much about pulling the personal story from the artist and working with their words. I think, in my opinion, this mode of songwriting doesn't work well with artists who are inexperienced wordsmiths or just don't have that knack for language. See also her work with Tate McRae. Similarly, diminished results. Emails I Can't Send debuted at number 23 on Billboard with 18,000 units sold. Nonsense, its highest charting single before the deluxe edition, peaked at number 58 on the Hot 100. So while clips of the song were going viral, the song itself wasn't really getting played, aka catching on with the general public and transcending catchy moments to become a smash hit. This period of time with a new label and releasing her first adult project, I think allowed Sabrina to hone some very essential skills that would serve her very well in the brightness of that Short and Sweet main pop girl spotlight. She focused heavily on her performances. Those were the things that seemed to be going viral, the visuals, not the music, the aesthetics. Her silly, lewd jokes, her dramatic old Hollywood bedazzled costumes, her go-go boots, her signature full face of makeup and bombshell blonde hair. Being recognizable and having an image is a very essential part of becoming a main pop girl. Chappell Roan's big red hair comes to mind. So even though the music was so-so, she still managed to galvanize a pretty devoted fan base around her because she was fun and she was pretty. I know that people do genuinely like this music, and I don't want to take that away from you, but I just have to be honest with you that it's very boring and low quality pop music. It's not bad, but it's boring. It's been clear from the jump, though, that Island Records was ready to push Sabrina and give her the resources that she needed to go where she did with Espresso. And let's be very clear, going viral is not enough to become a main pop girl and have a smash hit. You simply must have the label and their resources on your side. I remember distinctly during the Emails I Can't Send era being like, why is this girl getting so much budget when these songs are continually flopping? But Island was seeing the vision. Somebody else was seeing the vision too. Any guesses as to who that might be? While the Emails I Can't Send album campaign kept on going, right around the time Nonsense was picking up some traction, Sabrina was befriended by the HBIC diva extraordinaire Taylor Swift. She is then given the opportunity of a lifetime to be the opening act on the Eras Tour. Having Taylor Swift's stamp of approval at this specific period of time, I must stress, specific period of time, in 2023, right as the Eras Tour was about to unfold as the most celebrated live music event in history, was golden. Money cannot buy that kind of exposure. Not only was Sabrina going to benefit by headlining for a major artist, she would be forever inscribed in history as part of the biggest event of that major artist's career. Taylor brought her out several times to do flop duets and thanked her on stage every night. Not only was Sabrina the opening act, she was also Taylor Swift's friend. And if Taylor Swift thinks you're cool, well, she was the most popular girl in the world. So everybody she hangs out with must be super cool too. And let's not forget that at this point, this was pre-Tay negativity. This is Taylor Swift at the very height of all her powers, sharing the spotlight with an up-and-comer. Island Records knew this was an opportunity that required some investment, hence the strategic release of the deluxe version of Emails I Can't Send, with Feather, a song suspiciously more like Nonsense than any of the first four Weepy singles, accompanied by a big-budget music video that kind of half-heartedly attempted to rile up the Catholic Church, another saucy pop girl rite of passage. Feather quickly became, surprise, surprise, her biggest hit to date, at that point peaking in the top 30 of the Hot 100 and further re-establishing Sabrina as Taylor Swift's silly, sexy mini-me, instead of the weepy heir to her throne, a crown left for the incomparable Gracie Abrams. Proximity to Taylor means a lot of things. More resources from the label, for one, because you have a free billboard attached to you. Sabrina also released her Christmas EP, Fruitcake, at the end of the year, making sure she was still present in the public eye. Associating with Taylor Swift doesn't just get you straight up numerical boosts, though. There are more intangible, but equally important to main pop girldom perks, cultural and social cachet that can't be attained through elbow grease alone. All of a sudden, Sabrina's on a lot more red carpets, and she's being dressed by big designers like Taylor Swift's favorite, Oscar de la Renta. There's suddenly a fragrance line in the work. She's also starting to get much bigger brand campaigns. She's working for Samsung, Skims, and Marc Jacobs, for example, while keeping up her personal touring commitments on breaks from the Eras tour. Yep, she was opening for Taylor and also touring Europe and Asia on her own headlining tour. Like, the girl was working hard. But that's what you need to do when you get blood in the water, the scent of success. You have to hunt it down. And she was performing at festivals like Lollapalooza, too. Tough crowd for a girl with no hits, but she did it, and the nonsense outro went down a treat every time, and everyone checked out otherwise. She also entered into her first high-profile relationship. This is the Taylor Swift playbook. I've been saying this. Is it a coincidence that Barry happened to be riding a cultural high after his starring role in Saltburn? Well, they both had landed on a spark, but they needed a little elevation. He would also end up being a muse for the iconic Bedchem and a few other tunes on Short and Sweet. He attended the Eras tour several times to watch her live, and they were generally a very public couple. And while all of that was going on, this is all in the same year, she was also working on what would eventually come to be Short and Sweet. She expanded her circle considerably in these writing sessions, crucially pulling in Amy Allen, Jack Antonoff, Ian Kirkpatrick, and many other more industry veterans to support her. There were also writing camps for Short and Sweet. I don't believe Emails I Can't Send got the same treatment. Clearly, the budget increased for the follow-up. Writing camps are typically reserved for pop acts with bigger budgets and industry support because they are very expensive. A writing camp is an intensive collaborative songwriting session spaced out over a week or so, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. They can happen all at once or over a fixed period of time in a structured, high-pressure environment designed to generate songs quickly with multiple inputs from very many talented musicians. They maximize creativity and efficiency in a very short period of time. One only needs to glance at Sabrina's 2023 schedule and see that she did not have the time to be kicking it in the studio with one producer for months on end with all of this empty space in front of her, which is how Olivia Rodrigo, someone who is much more focused on being a singer-songwriter, produces her records. She's not walking into a room and saying, who can give me the best idea today? She's coming in with the idea and collaborating with Dan Nigro and saying, how can we make this the best it can be? So Sabrina had a window of time, a blonde ambition, and some data to work with. The people like it when I make the pop songs. Let's go with that. I am not one to turn my nose up at a writing camp. Beyonce is a prolific writing camp user. She flits between rooms of producers and writers and gives feedback on multiple songs in progress at once. Sometimes she will even take, one line from one room and bring it to another. Not all writing camps are that chaotic, but you get the general idea. You have X amount of time to turn in X amount of songs. Come hell or high water, you are leaving that room with a song on X day. Dua Lipa also had writing camps for her follow-up after her breakthrough with New Rules for Future Nostalgia. And look what happened there. Perfectly curated. And then we have Sabrina's creative breakthrough. And thank God for that. Here's the beauty of having a budget and being surrounded by industry veterans who know how to sniff out a hit from a person's character. It's one thing to write someone a generic pop song and hand it to them and say, sing this. It's another thing to help an artist create a pop song that reflects who they are as a person. On a 10-day break from tour in France, Sabrina wrote Espresso, and it was a total breakthrough. She had been writing her usual dreary, heavy, sad songs, and she described this song when it came to her as a breath of fresh air. She said, and I quote, "In the midst of all of it, I was like, this is still such a huge part of me, this mentality, this sense of humor and playfulness." Her collaborators noticed that too and wanted to bring it out of her through the songwriting. She wrote Dumb and Poetic quite quickly after Espresso, which is a fairly heavy song, but it is also a searing indictment of someone who thinks that mushrooms can change their life. And it kind of blends the Espresso breakthrough of being funny with what she had been trying to do on Emails I Can't Send. Amy Allen felt that these two songs were the two massive goalposts in between which Sabrina could find her style. John Ryan, who worked on Emails I Can't Send and Short and Sweet, very astutely noticed a dissonance between the artist in the room with him and what was coming out on the page as they worked together before the Espresso breakthrough. He said she was sharp and quick and funny, that she was laughing the whole time they were writing these sad songs, and he wondered to himself, when is this funny person going to start coming through in the records? With Amy Allen and co, Sabrina felt more compelled to lean into that side of herself, and that's where all the funny turns of phrase start to come from. I've been known to share on Taste, I beg you don't embarrass me, mother effer, on Please Please Please, make me Juno, which is an absurd and potentially appallingly cringe thing to say, that she suggested as a joke in a writing session, then dismissed, only to pick it back up again a few days later with a new set of chords, emboldened by this sense of humor that had come to her with Espresso. And here comes the shift. So come 2024, Sabrina was poised for a takeover. With the momentum that she'd slowly built, it was time to unleash the tea on the divas. She booked, bafflingly to me at the time, and if we're being real, also to the audience, the main stage at Coachella, and she knew that this would be the perfect time to launch her new era. Again, she let her curatorial instincts guide her. Just as she knew that that silly Make Me Juno line was a nugget of something good, she felt that Espresso was the strongest possible lead single from Short and Sweet. Her label really tried to push her in the direction of Please Please Please, but she held firm that Espresso was the song. The stage design for Coachella matched the vibe that she had been curating and that she would expand upon in the high-budget Dave Meyers music video for Espresso that was released shortly after her first set at Coachella. It was Sabrina's motel. It was very Californian. She entered on a giant motorized cart. There was a crashed Mercedes in the stage. It was camp. The set was also designed by the same firm that did Beyonce's Homecoming. I remember I watched that live stream and said, oh, the stage is taking it. The songs are boring, but the stage is taking it. The styling is a very important part of who Sabrina is as an artist. She said before that she's really not playing a character. The sex pot Betty Boop thing is no persona. It's just a heightened and exaggerated version of who she is. She wanted to debut Espresso at Coachella because she felt that it would be understood better if it was experienced live for the first time, and it totally was. From the moment I heard it, it was a smash hit. In my mind, the whole performance of it is completely elevated from the rest of her otherwise boring set on a really cool stage. Choreography is super cute, and she hits her marks perfectly. When she returns to Coachella for weekend 2, you can see the response from the audience is huge now that the song's been out and they know what they're here for. She knows exactly where to look, where the cameras are. This was an athlete coming into their peak performance after training for a really long time. And I have to give it up to Island Records. The label supported this vision flawlessly. Billboards popped up in the desert, setting the tone for the cheekiness to come. She's going to make you come to her Coachella set. We all know what would go on to happen with Espresso, obviously, after this. The second biggest hit of 2024. It has over 1 billion streams. It was nominated for Record of the Year. It won Song of the Year at the VMAs. The video was again very stylized, showing her sense of humor, her playfulness, this coquettish vibe that she had been dipping into by wearing corsets and baby doll dresses on stage. All of this is transpiring in April, by the way. So then she lets it breathe. She lets the hype build and build and build. There is something to be said about taking your time in a culture that is always pursuing more. She becomes even more of a presence in popular culture. Hashtag BrinaCore is catching on. People are mimicking her style on TikTok. All of a sudden, she's important enough to attend the Met Gala, and she performs on SNL, doing her little two-step in her baby doll dress with some handsome waiters at a bar. This is all before the second single is even a feather on the breath of God, by the way. She's actually out of new material for SNL, so she has to perform Feather. But you know what? This really let people get to know the new Sabrina. The vision is unfolding, and the song is going global too. She hits #1 in the UK, and then she goes right over there when it goes #1 to do promo. She does interviews for the radio. She's performing at the BBC Radio one big weekend, still with just her one hit song. But you see, the song was so good that it didn't matter. That is the smash hit effect. Then, like any good Taylor Swift student, she starts doing her Easter egging. A video appears on Instagram of her filmed on like an old mid-century Hollywood camera. She walks up and gives the lens a big old smooch. And there we have the album's strongest motif, conveniently already an emoji, the kissy face. And then we find out that there's a new single coming, and it's been produced by Jack Antonoff. Oh, pop star. I see why the label wanted to go with this one first. I mean, it was produced by Jack Antonoff, a well-received and well-known hitmaker, but Sabrina was right to set the tone with Espresso. Please, Please, Please is a different vibe entirely, which I think was an excellent second entry into the public consciousness. It's a bit more period piece, serious, sad siren, whereas Espresso was like the pinup girl on vacation. Releasing this during the summertime as well, bellissima. As Taylor Swift predicted, this would be the summer of Sabrina. I want to go back to talking about Sabrina's curatorial instincts, her vision for having a moment. Let's talk about how Sabrina leveraged her celebrity to climb the pop ladder immediately at this point. It's no secret that men have been an essential part of the pop girl narrative, not for their creative contributions, no, as the purses, the accessories, for the drama, the intrigue, the storylines they help to create. Taylor Swift wrote the rule book on this, turning her relationships into high art and making the world obsess over every detail, treating it like a national sport. And now Sabrina, her pocket-sized mini-me, is following suit strategically, of course. Her decision to cast her very famous, very culturally relevant boyfriend as her love interest in the Please, Please, Please video was no coincidence. It was a masterstroke in leveraging celebrity power. If the pop girl's job is to be as interesting as possible, to get people talking and to inject a little bit of theater into their persona, then this was the perfect move. Barry was riding a high from Saltburn. His stock had never been higher. His bizarre charisma and leading man potential suddenly became a major cultural talking point. And meanwhile, Sabrina was ascending to the next level of her career, fresh off the success of Espresso and on the cusp of her album drop. What better way to cement both of their places as cultural icons than to bring their relationship into her art? A pop girl can become a lot more compelling with a famous boyfriend. It creates a mystique, an aesthetic, a layer of intrigue that makes her more than just a singer, a star. Pop is not just about the music, it's about the world that you build around it. And what's more iconic than a femme fatale pop girl and her chaotic Irish movie star boyfriend? It's the kind of pairing that gets people emotionally invested, even if they aren't fans of her music, which means eventually they might just become fans of her music. And I think that's what happened. Please, Please, Please video plays right into this, exaggerating the dynamic of their public personas in a way that is both self-aware and cinematic. Barry plays the reckless bad boy, and Sabrina plays the ride or die committed girlfriend. The Bonnie and Clyde imagery, the vintage styling, the push and pull of their chemistry. It's giving romance. It's giving scandal. It's giving event. And the genius of it all, it doesn't even matter whether they stay together or if they break up as the song prescribes and he embarrasses her. This was a moment in time that added layers to her mythology. Pop girls have done this forever. Britney and Justin, Ariana and Pete, Taylor, and literally all of her boyfriends. Even Madonna, the blueprint, knew the power of a high-profile relationship to elevate her status. As a student of popular culture, Sabrina played this card flawlessly at exactly the right time and on her own terms. This really benefited her more than it benefited him. But none of that would have worked if the song wasn't good. Please, Please, Please slaps. And we're like 6 weeks into the album campaign. You see what happens when you sprinkle out the good stuff over time with creative direction and you don't just randomly drop singles and pray for a moment to happen. Please, Please, Please is definitely an advancement in Sabrina's artistry, specifically for her songwriting. Whereas Espresso was all about that cheeky, repetitive hook, Please, Please, Please is a narrative arc, character-driven song. It also reinforces something really essential to Sabrina's mystique. It's old-worldly, but modern, and ultimately timeless. Sonically, it's rich and very much vintage-inspired with a Phil Spector style kind of wall of sound created by Jack Antonoff, who loves to make a reference in his pop music too. Espresso, if you think about it, also has this kind of funky groove vintage vibe to it as well. One of the most defining aspects of Sabrina Carpenter's short and sweet era and what helps it feel like a moment is her fully realized mid-century inspired aesthetic, which plays a crucial role in making her stand out in an oversaturated pop landscape. It isn't just a fashion statement, it's a branding strategy. Sabrina's look for this era draws from the 60s and the early 70s fashion, referencing everything from Brigitte Bardot's sultry styling to Sharon Tate's baby doll dresses and Barbra Streisand's campy old Hollywood energy. You know the look, you're picturing it in your mind's eye as I'm describing it to you. Mini dresses, go-go boots, eyeliner, bouffant hair amidst the dreadful slick back bun epidemic. These ultra-feminine silhouettes that exude a mix of innocence and allure. It very much visually depicts the cheekiness that we're hearing in the music. And she's also constantly wearing vintage while out and about. She's wearing vintage Cavalli at Radio 1's Big Weekend, vintage Michael Kors at the Vogue World After Party. After Please, Please, Please smashes, it gives Sabrina her first #1 hit, and she is off to the races. She's clocking up viral moments like they're nothing. She chooses to perform Good Luck Babe for her live lounge session, which was kind of only just starting to pop off around that time, catapulting that song and her even further into the mainstream public consciousness. Then her arena tour is announced, headlining arena tour, and it's sold out before the album even comes out. 2 singles out and she's selling out a headlining tour. She couldn't do that with Emails I Can't Send, now could she, even with the full album out? Again, I stress to you the power of a smash hit. It's hard to comprehend and explain because there are so few of them as of late, like truly career-defining, legacy-making singles. But the label budget, however, is also budgeting here. There are more short and sweet billboards popping up all over the place. Her publicist is making great moves. She goes on Hot Ones, further endearing herself and her funny personality. There's another fragrance drop, and then we're into August, album release months, and we find out that she's got 6 VMA nominations, 2 songs out. She's booked to open the show. She covers Variety magazine, and Espresso surpasses 1 billion streams. Pop girl alert. A moment that really sticks out in my head prior to the release of Short and Sweet was her interview magazine shoot. This styling is crazy. It's super chic. It's so elegant. It just has that it girl energy. And again, it reinforces her mid-century aesthetic. One of the most important parts of having an era or making a moment is that repetition, whether that's in the hook of a song, that's that Me Espresso, or showing up in public exactly how people picture you in their heads. Sabrina did both. So here comes the album. My perspective on the release was, at the time, there's no way this is a full-length back-to-back hit. I just had not seen a consistent or solid full-length project from Sabrina that felt like it really had something to say. But boy, was I pleasantly surprised. Let's start with the opening track. Holding Back Taste, to the weekend that the album came out, was absolutely inspired. She actually had an abundance of singles to pick from here. It was crazy. And it's not like either of her 2 prior singles were flopping or had fallen off the charts when Taste came out. Au contraire, all 3 songs occupied the top 3. And yet another genius move was to hold this one back for the album release because it coincides with the audience finding out about this Shawn Mendes, Camila Cabello love triangle. There's a new layer of drama to drive interest in Sabrina Carpenter. And the music video really helps us connect those dots. Jenna Ortega was giving Camila Cabello tease, and we should not be lying about that. This video is also incredible. It's campy, it's funny, it's gory, it's sexy. It's all the things that make Sabrina Carpenter uniquely her. It's also, because she's a pop culture student, an homage to the film Death Becomes Her. So when the album comes out, the public has yet another topic of conversation, a line of intrigue that's separate to the music but completely narrated by it, that only really serves to elevate Sabrina's profile. This didn't help Camila Cabello. This didn't help Shawn Mendes. Brava! Genius. There's more Shawn Mendes tea all over this album. She completely cooks him on Dumb and Poetic. But I think sonically, I was most surprised by Juno, Good Graces, and Bedchem. Those songs really stood out to me as hits and potential single choices, but we didn't even really need them because we already had 3 smashes. Of course, Short and Sweet was a massive commercial success, shifting 362,000 equivalent album units compared to Emails I Can't Send's 18,000? That's a 1,911 increase in first week sales, my girls. She even beat out notorious chart cheater and nothing knower Travis Scott for the top spot. Excellence wins. Is this project a front-to-back smash hit? I want to say yes, but I skip a few songs on this track list. The hits and the slays are so prolific, though, that it pretty much doesn't matter. Bedchem and Juno are instant non-single standouts, and something that I find really interesting about this album is that it's still relevant in the public eye and in our collective imagination over 6 months later. Like, she just performed Bedchem at the Brit Awards like 2 days ago. That might not sound like a long time, but it's not like the album has faded into obscurity. Sabrina's found unique ways to keep it at the forefront of conversation throughout its short existence. I mean, let's compare what was happening with Sabrina, these singles, and this album to what was happening with CXOXO or Radical Optimism 6 months later after their release. Dead in the water. Nobody talking. Again, I have to give claps and cheers to Sabrina's publicist because she was booked and busy, but not in a shove down your throat kind of way. And I think that's also because there was such great competition in 2024, which again should only underscore how hard it was to stand out. Impressive. Sabrina's first true main pop girl moment was, to me, her VMA performance. She opened the show and it was a rip-roaring success, a medley of her 3 huge singles. And again, something I love about her is that she loves to make a reference, and we have the iconic Britney Spears Oops, I Did It Again nod in her performance of Taste, where she makes out with the alien before launching into what is frankly a diva performance of Espresso. You can also hear the crowd going absolutely sicko mode when it starts playing because it's that girl. It's the song of the year for me, which, speaking of, she actually manages to win at the VMAs. It's pretty impressive that Sabrina's somehow able to be a main character in the room with Taylor Swift. She's not her sidekick, she's not her bestie, hanging on and clamoring for some of the residual shine, but she's got her own spotlight, her and Chapel. But it's more surprising to me that Sabrina was able to command that attention because it was a much steeper mountain for her to climb from an originality point of view than it was for Chapel. Chapel is like such a unique, iconoclast, charismatic artist. Sabrina had to work a lot harder to find her voice and carve that niche out. And on the red carpet, she's continuing her fashion girlydom. She's wearing a vintage silver beaded Bob Mackie dress once worn by Madonna on the red carpet. The references are on multiple levels, girls. She is a student of pop culture. That is what we need all of our pop stars to be, so they can create something original instead of something reiterative. Cough, cough, Tate McRae, dancing extraordinaire, who has been compared to Britney Spears, but who said that her favorite dance break of all time was, wait for it, Single Ladies. And after the VMAs, it's slay after slay for the rest of the year. Sabrina's Christmas Netflix special is announced. The tour starts and has several viral moments. The reveal of her glittery bodysuit, opening her towel at the start of the show, the sex positions, and the arrest she does in Juno every night. That show, by the way, looks incredible. I wish I could see it, but it doesn't look like it's coming anywhere near me. She took a lot of inspiration for the styling of the show from vintage Playboy magazines, and the entire show has a sort of 60s, 70s television theming to it. Before the year goes up, the album is platinum. She's being the diva. She's dressing up as Lizzie McGuire for Halloween. Christina Aguilera comes out to sing What a Girl Wants with her on tour. And then it's time for the Christmas special, aka the Diva Parade. The link up of Chapel and Sabrina kind of broke the internet after that year. I mean, they were the divas of 2024. So like, genius cross collaboration. I think it also really helps that they're on the same label. So they are less competitors in that sense. It really behooves the label to allow them and encourage them to link up. And then Grammy nominations come out. It is the most stacked year of all time, and Sabrina is nominated in 6 categories, including all of the big 4: Song of the Year, Record of the Year, Album of the Year, and Best New Artist. To be honest, she was robbed of Record of the Year. With all due respect to Not Like Us, it's Know That Me Espresso. Before the album came out, she did her Grammy Museum performance. She did her NPR Tiny Desk, which, it wasn't my favorite performance of hers, but she sold it personality-wise, even if the vocals left something to be desired. Short and Sweet, I think, is not really supposed to be acousticified. We need to have our groove. We need to have our funk involved. She has a collaboration with Dunkin' Donuts. This is main pop girl behavior, being everywhere in a fun way where people are happy to see you. And I mean, after Espresso, it was only right that she collabed on some sort of coffee deal. Be serious. Now, let's talk Grammys. A phenomenal night for Ms. Carpenter. She took home 2 awards, Pop Vocal Album, Pop Solo Performance, deserved. She also gave a Ginger Rogers-esque stand-up comedian medley of Please, Please, Please and Espresso. Very charming. It had multiple outfit changes. It had humor. It had gags. Hard to pull off, by the way. I think Sabrina has really worked on her confidence as a performer. It's really hard to be a sexy pop star while also being an endearing, self-deprecating diva, and she did it flawlessly. She wins her awards. She's on the cover of Vogue, and then she announces the deluxe version of Short and Sweet. And you know what's so interesting to me is that all of the Album of the Year nominees for the Grammys this year, this is the one era of those albums that still feels active. We are not done with it yet. I had been saying before she announced it that we needed more US tour dates and a deluxe, and look what we were given. When you flawlessly execute a rollout like this, it's only right that you luxuriate in that spotlight and you give yourself the time to soak it up and to execute your vision to its maximum potential. Returning back to my point about Album of the Year nominees moving on, Chapel's definitely moving on to something else. Granted, Midwest Princess is like 5 years in the making at this point. Brat Summer has been over. Cowboy Carter was moved on from quickly, and Tortured Poets is dead in the water. So Short and Sweet is the only one that is like an ongoing, alive, and active album campaign. She just charted 2 of the deluxe tracks, Busy Woman and 15 Minutes, which are great songs, by the way. I am ambivalent about the other 2 tracks, and the Dolly Parton remix is a crime against humanity, but it was a brilliant marketing stunt, which brings us back to the present day. I thought her Brits Awards performance was such a good depiction of how far she's come. There are the classic pop culture references. If you're not getting Fergie London Bridge from this, you haven't done the homework, but it was cheeky. It was controversial. It was scandalous. And something I've noticed is that a lot of these album tracks have become so big, they might as well have been singles. Bedcam got a huge response from the audience and a very elaborate production. It would be great to see one more award show big performance of Juno to really top off this album campaign and tie it in a bow. The VMAs, the Brits, the Grammys, iconic performances. But the Brits, she just seemed really happy to be there, really confident, really in command. And listen, Espresso has been a challenging song for her to sing, but she's got the hang of it. And frankly, she sounded great in Bedcam. We are really watching a main pop girl evolve. Sabrina has done something incredibly difficult. She's successfully rewritten her narrative, catapulting herself from the sidelines of pop into the main conversation. And her next trick will have to be sustaining it beyond just one iconic era. I do not want the Katy Perry Teenage Dream effect to happen to Sabrina Carpenter. Short and Sweet worked because it was aesthetic, it was fun, it was well curated, but also because it had a clear musical and branding direction. It leaned into playfulness and sensuality and camp in a way that really set her apart. Now, can she continue to build on that, or will she fall back into the emails I can't send trap of sleepy ballads and algorithm pop? There's already a little cause for concern. Some of those short and sweet album tracks and even a couple of the deluxe edition songs suggest a return to that singer-songwriter balladry and a country-inspired twang that, frankly, I think does nothing for her in large doses. I don't want her to veer into that direction. Her pop brilliance, in my opinion, lies in her wit and her character and her personality, not trying to out-melancholy the Olivia Rodrigos of the world. If she starts veering too far into singer-songwriter earnestness, I think she'll risk undoing the very work that made her a pop force to begin with. The best move, in my humble opinion, as the Swiftologist, would be to double down on that strength of hers. She needs to lean even harder into that mid-century bombshell aesthetic. There's a lot more room to mine there. Her flirty lyrical style, her humor, her cheeky pop sensibility. If there's one thing we've learned from the main pop girl blueprint, it's that the sophomore success is the real test. And by the way, Sabrina's next album is going to be her sophomore album. Okay, we're scratching everything from the record before this. Short and Sweet, in my view, was her debut record. It was her breakout. But can she now evolve and elevate without losing what made her fun in the first place? Only time will tell. But let's hope the next chapter is filled with more espresso, more taste, and a lot less acoustic guitar-driven self-reflection. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think the most transformative part of Sabrina Carpenter's journey was and where you see her career going from here. And thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe. I work really hard on these videos for you, and I will see you in the next one.